What's fueled the Badgers' early season basketball success? We're going stock up on the players that we thought maybe weren't going to be this good to start the season. Plus, some of the players that left in the portal. Let's take a look back at their careers and their recruitments, plus your comments on today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. Really do appreciate it. I say it all the time, but I hope you all realize I really do appreciate it. You guys are incredible, guys and gals. Today's episode brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Let's just jump in. I was thinking about this the other day. This Badgers team, I mean, if you go back to the offseason, there was not me, but I had questions, though. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had questions about this team, but there was a sizable group of people who were fire Gard coming off that NIT season last year. And there were a lot of people that were frustrated with this program who did not think this program would be very good this year. I thought they would be a solid tournament team. They've exceeded my expectations to this point. Like, I'm not going to blow smoke. I didn't think they would be this good. I didn't think they would be this ready. And I was thinking about it, like, well, what was I wrong on, right? Like, what is the difference between what I thought? What's the delta between what I thought to what they are now? So I'm going stock up on five people, 5 players or coaches that have outperformed what I thought they would this year. I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of take a moment, hit the break, hit the pause, and say, all right, these players have really outperformed where I thought. And also, there's a little stock down here, too. I want to start with Kamari McGee. So I've talked about the depth on this team. Some of the issues I thought are still there. But Kamari McGee has really stepped into a backup point guard role on this team and a person that you can trust. You can trust him in moments now, I feel like. Whereas last year, I don't think he was aggressive enough on offense. I don't think he was aggressive enough on defense. He's played much better. And now I feel like when he's in there, he gives you a little bit of a dynamic, smaller, quicker athlete, averaging 5.8 steals per 40 minutes this year. Last year was at 2. He's almost tripled his steal rate. And again, he doesn't play a lot of minutes, but that's why I'm using the per 40. Like, he's almost tripled his ability to get steals. And that reflects that aggressive defense. He's shooting a little bit more. He's shooting a little bit better. He's playing more aggressively. His field goal percentage is up. I think he hasn't played a ton, but I think he's been a kind of important part to this really good Badgers run, is he gives you the ability to put Hepburn on the bench for a few minutes. Again, not for long stretches, but he can play on the bench for a few minutes, come in and give you quality 3, 4, 5-minute spurts as a backup point guard. It's really important to have that. So that's my first one. Stock up Kamari McGee. Stock up Tyler Wahl. I talked about his season last year, and one of the things I said, and I feel like I've been kind of not vindicated, that's the wrong word, but proven correct on this, is he was going to be better when his usage rate dropped. He's just not a guy that is the number one option on an offense, but he's really good. He does so many things really well. You just can't overuse him, right? You can't treat him like Karl Malone and throw the ball into the post every time and say, go to work, big guy. That's not Tyler Wahl's game, but he's such an important piece. And the biggest thing we talk about so much with him last year, you got to make free throws. If you're going to be a post player, excuse me, if you're going to get fouled, you got to get free throws. He shot 63% last year. He's up to 68% this year. Listen, obviously, if he could get that into the low 70s, it'd be great, but he's made a marked improvement from the free throw line. His effective field goal percentage is way up. Effective field goal percentage is a better way to track overall shooting than just standard field goal percentage. It takes into account difficulty of shots, distances, those kind of things. He's 55% this year. He was 44% last year. So his shooting has gone way up, right? His free throw percentage has gone way up. His rebound rate has jumped up. The percentage of available rebounds that he gets has jumped up. I think you can see that. I've talked about that a couple times. He's the guy early in the game, right? If the Badgers aren't playing really well, he's the guy to go in and get 2 offensive rebounds. He really does an incredible job of crashing those boards, getting the team going, getting second chance points. And excuse me again, he's really improved in that aspect. He's become more efficient. He's become a better shooter. He's become a better free throw shooter. He's become the player that we really talked about that he needed to be coming into this year. So stock up on Tyler Wahl. This one's obvious, man. John Blackwell. From the beginning of the year to now, has there been a player who's more stock up than John Blackwell? He's been a revelation, right? He's been an absolute revelation. Do you know he's the third highest rebound rate on this team among regular players? He has the third highest rebound rate. Rebound rate is the percentage of available rebounds a player grabs. John Blackwell's grabbing 12.9%. So of every rebound that's out there, John Blackwell gets about 13% of them when he's on the court. That's the third highest rate on this team as a freshman, as a 6'4", 6'5" guard. He's the third highest rate on this team behind Wahl and Crowl. And he's not that far behind Wahl. He's second on the team behind Stephen Crowl in true shooting percentage, which I want to pause there for a second because I think that that goes under the hood of something in Blackwell's game that is talked about but not fully appreciated. He shoots incredibly well, which we talked about. But he has the poise to not force or jack up unnecessary shots. How many young players have that combination? I'm going to pause there. Think about it. Really think about this combination of things that he does. He shoots an incredibly high percentage, and he doesn't take a ton of shots as a young player. Like that's so unique because so many young players who shoot really well start jacking shots and their efficiency plummets. He has this old man game. We've talked about it, but the stats go even deeper on it. He shoots really well because he doesn't force shots, and because he's mature enough, he doesn't fall into the loop of saying, I shoot really well, so I'm going to force more shots. No, he's comfortable in his game. He picks his moments, and he's okay with that. His ego doesn't override his role. There's so many players in basketball specifically, where the ego overrides their role. They're not okay from an ego standpoint with being a guy who only takes 7 shots a game when they're shooting well. And if they don't get the shots, they pout. None of that is John Blackwell. Like, again, he has been coached. He has been raised a certain way, whatever it is. He's very unique from a maturity standpoint because most players that shoot that well are taking more shots and not always to the benefit of the team. Per 40 minutes, he averages 7.2 free throw attempts per game. This is remarkable. He leads the team. John Blackwell Jr. I got in the habit early offseason thinking he was a junior for some reason. John Blackwell leads the team in free throw attempts per 40 minutes. And not only does he lead the team, that 7.2 free throw attempts per 40 minutes mark would lead the team a lot of years. Johnny Davis in his breakout sophomore year averaged 7.4. So in other words, Blackwell is almost forcing per 40 minutes getting to the free throw line as much as prime Johnny Davis at Wisconsin. Think about that, y'all, because he wasn't taking the shots that Johnny was. He's going to continue to get better and better. And again, that goes back to the nuance of his game. That goes back to his ability to do all these little things. He's incredible. So stock from where we were to start the year to now, stock like meteoric rise for John Blackwell, right? The next one's Stephen Crowl. I love what I've seen from Stephen this year. Shooting better from every single level, from deep, from the mid-range, from the post, from the free throw line, effective shooting percentage up. He's playing a little less, but he's playing much more efficiently. He's scoring more in less minutes. His assist rate, here's one that's interesting because if you just look at his raw stats, his assist rate has gone down, Stephen Crowl. But I think it's for a very good reason and a positive one. I think he's been more aggressive offensively. And I think that more aggressive offensive approach has led to less attempts from assists, but it's good for the offense. Like, he's being more aggressive. Those one-on-one matchups where in the past, Crowl would get it in that mid-post and kind of look around, kind of hesitate. Now he's getting it one-on-one, drop the shoulder, 2 dribbles, shimmy shake, right-hand hook, right? He's so much more aggressive in those moments. I think it's really impressive. He's shooting better. He's scoring more in less minutes. Yeah, Crowell's been a huge part of this. And the other one I want to say stock up on is Gard. I don't know how you cannot. Like, he has this team poised to be the second best team in the Big Ten this year, coming off an NIT season. You know, with a lot of frustration in the fan base, people maybe saying you should be in the hot seat, the handling of Connor Sejan, all these things, you know, he added in the offseason. It looks like he found the right pieces. It looks like John Blackwell is a recruiting absolute steal. You know, he was able to keep Chucky Hepburn here. He's able to keep Tyler Wahl here. He is this team on the precipice of maybe an Elite 8 type of a run, a second-place Big Ten finish. Stock way upgrade Gard. There's no way around it. If you were down on him, you got to at least be honest and acknowledge what this team is doing right now. They look great. Offensively, they look as good as Wisconsin's been since those incredibly dynamic 14-15 Badger teams. So definitely stock up great Gard. All right, we're going to take a quick break there, come back with stock down on a couple players, plus some of the thoughts on the players that have left in the transfer portal. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel is the number one source for all your sports betting needs, whether you have parlays, futures, teasers, spreads, whatever it is, you can do it on FanDuel. It's incredibly easy to use. It's fast. It's simple. Payouts are quick. The user interface is simple. It's perfect. They have customer support that's really great too if you're just trying to figure something out. One of my favorite parts with FanDuel is if you've bet on other sports books, some of them aren't the easy. I'm not going to name them, but I've been there. Some of them aren't the easiest to make the bet and then get the money, right? You're working with like overseas things and third parties, and it's confusing. Your bank doesn't like it. FanDuel makes payouts incredibly simple, incredibly easy. Plus, new customers, $5 moneyline bet, you get $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's bonus bets, win or lose. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, let's keep going here. I want to talk about some of the players that left in the portal. And I don't know if people like this segment or not. I've done it a couple times. I know some Badger fans are of the opinion when a player leaves, not even that, it's not even like an antagonistic thing or like a frustration. They just say, I'm done with them. I don't care. Because I get so into recruiting and because I've followed recruiting every year since, the mid 2000s, like 2005, 2006, 2007, I think is when it really got started. Like all these guys that committed, I remember when they committed. I remember my thoughts on it. I remember the recruiting battles. Like I remember reading scouting reports, watching huddle films of all these guys. So when they leave, like I don't want to say I'm sad about it. Like I don't have personal relationships with these players, these young men, but like it hits me in a certain way because I cheer for all these guys when they get here. I want all of them to develop. And when they leave, I like taking a second and looking back, right? This was the recruitment. This is what they did at Wisconsin. This is where they're headed. So a couple others I wanted to highlight. Again, I did this before when like DK left, when Miles Burkett left. I want to highlight a few players in this new group that have transferred out of Wisconsin. The first one is Rodis Johnson. He came in the 2019 class. Rodis Johnson has transferred, defensive lineman. He's going to Texas A&M, which I think is an interesting fit for him because I don't know if he's going to play a lot there. Like I had expected him to transfer down a little bit, right, to maybe maximize playing time. Maybe Texas A&M. I think he's potentially looking at it like a depth guy. Like we can get somebody in who is ready-made size, who has a lot of experience, who can play the run. I get it from that standpoint. He's absolutely solid depth, and maybe that's what they're looking for. So Rodis came in that 2019 class. He was a 3-star defensive lineman. Had a good offer list. Rodis had offers or interest from Penn State, Iowa, Kentucky, Duke, Georgia Tech. Really good offer list. He's going to finish his Badger career with 50 career tackles, 2.5 sacks, 2 passes defensed, played 3 seasons, played a lot of football for the Badgers. I don't think this is a huge loss. He's definitely depth. He's definitely played a lot of football. He can play the run, but he's just not very disruptive. But listen, I hope he does well. I always cheer for unless they leave in a weird way, they throw the program under the bus. I always hope success for these guys because there's no reason for me not to. Like they're not doing anything wrong. If you get excited when the Badgers pick up a transfer, you can't get frustrated when people leave. Like it doesn't work both ways. That's just how college football works now. So Rodis Johnson going to Texas A&M, played here for parts of 3 years. Nolan Rucci. Now this was one that generated news because he was a 5-star guy, right? Nolan Rucci was a 5-star tackle who committed to Wisconsin out of Pennsylvania. And not just a 5-star guy. Like if you go look at the recruiting rankings on Rucci, that's the number 16 player in the nation in that class. The number 1 player in Pennsylvania. Offers from everywhere. Georgia, Bama, Clemson, Penn State, Michigan. Like he could have gone anywhere he wanted to go. He came to Wisconsin, never played. It's wild. Like you look at him and Logan Brown, and the Badgers had 10 recruiting stars there. 10 stars of recruiting, and they got nothing. They got nothing from those two. Absolutely wild. I think there's always personal accountability that comes into play. There's also, like I said, I don't think it's the easiest thing to develop when you have a new offensive line coach every year. You're changing offenses. I don't think those players, specifically Rucci, were put in the best spot to develop. So Rucci has announced he's going to Penn State, going back home. Obviously, his dad is, that's where his dad played. That's where they're from. They're from Pennsylvania. So, I mean, it's a great family. We had the opportunity on my previous podcast to interview the Ruccis, the mom and dad, Todd and Stacy. So a great family. I hope he does well. Certainly, he didn't find playing time here, and you can't begrudge a kid for leaving. But again, you go back and you look at the recruiting win. I remember when that happened. I remember the recruiting video, this 5-star tackle, and it was just incredible. What a big win. Nothing. One thing Brian Smith has always talked about, I know Commandant Klink asked this, he's always talked about offensive line is the absolute hardest spot to predict how they're going to develop in college, because in high school they're blocking such smaller guys, they're bigger dudes. It's really hard to predict how they're going to look when they put on more weight, when they face people their size. And it just never clicked for him. He never got big enough. Like it looked in the bowl game. This is something Coach and I talked about. He looked small. He didn't look big enough. And I don't know why he never got bigger. And why he never looked more physically developed. There's a reason Jack Nelson was playing. Jack Nelson was the more physically ready player at offensive tackle for Wisconsin. Rucci probably has a higher ceiling still. He's probably more athletic, but if it clicks, it's not going to click in Madison. He's going to Penn State. The other one I want to talk about, Jordan Turner. Turner was a 3-star inside linebacker out of Farmington, Michigan. Played 30 games for the Badgers. He finishes his Badger career with 135 tackles. 12.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 3 picks. His original offer list was pretty good. Purdue, Cincy, Michigan was in there, Penn State, Pitt, West Virginia. Had a productive career for Wisconsin, but the writing was on the wall, right? With the Badgers bringing in 5 linebackers, you could tell they're not satisfied with it. And quite frankly, our play there wasn't great last year. I've talked about it. We talked about it. Justin's has been on the show and talked about it. It wasn't good enough. And Turner was a part of that. Turner was recruited to play a different style of defense. And he wasn't. I would say in general, our linebackers were consistently beaten to the edges last year. They weren't as athletic in space as this staff wants for this system. So Turner has entered the portal. He's going to play at Michigan State. They've had a lot of Badgers come in there in the last couple of years through the portal. So that's interesting. Again, wish him well too. Like I have no animosity to any of these kids, any of these young men. There's no reason to. I hope they do well. I hope these are all players that put in time in the program, in the weight room. They put in time promoting the program. It didn't work out, but a lot of things don't work out. And it doesn't mean I want their next thing to also not work out. Another one into the portal, Aiden Vaughn, another linebacker. Again, the writing was on the wall. When these linebackers came into the portal, one of the things I said was, this tells you how the staff feels about the depth, not just among the players playing, but among that 2 deep, that 3 deep. And you're probably going to see some guys from this spot enter the portal. Aiden Vaughn's one of those guys. He was a 3-star out of Michigan. Solid offer list: Iowa, Maryland, Louisville, Minnesota. I really liked his film when he entered the program. Kind of an athletic tweener a little bit, but pretty explosive. Kind of gets in and out of spots really fast. Good in space. Yeah, I like Aiden Vaughn. I like the film a lot. I haven't seen where he's going to commit to yet. Maybe he hasn't decided. But there's 4 players there with Rodas, Nolan, Turner, and Aiden Vaughn all entering the portal. And kind of, my last thoughts on them: 2 linebackers, an offensive lineman, and a defensive lineman. All spots that this team needs upgrades in, quite frankly. Right? They've already attacked linebacker in the portal. They brought in 5 offensive linemen in this recruiting class, and 3 defensive linemen. So these are all coming from spots that the Badgers need to upgrade. And I don't think you should lose sight on that, but I'm also cheering for them. I hope they do well. All right, we're going to take one more quick break. We're going to come back with a bunch of your comments. Good stuff from Commandant Klink, from Playmaker, what it takes to be an NBA player, what this team can't do if it wants to make a run deep into the tournament. All that coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, all from your comments. But first, a quick break from our friends over at Jase Medical. One of the things I always talk about is I like to be prepared to protect my family. I want to be empowered to protect my family. Jase Medical lets me do that. Don't get unprepared. Don't get stuck in a situation where you can't get the medicine you need maybe to take care of something. Jase Medical gives you a Jase case with the ability to treat 50 plus infections with 5 different life-saving antibiotics. Let's say you can't get to the pharmacy, there's a storm, snow, power's down, whatever it is. I've got my Jase case up in a cupboard. It comes with instructions. You have basically a line to the pharmacist, so you know exactly how to use these medicines, these pills, these drugs to help treat infections. They handle everything from online evaluations, licensed pharmacy medication delivery, ongoing consultation, and care. It's a perfect way to make sure you can take care of your family in a time of need, in a time of crisis. It's simple. You go online, fill out a form, and then you get your prescription life-saving medication right to your door. You stick it in your cupboard for when you may need it. Protect yourself, protect your family. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Save more than $360. That's jasemedical.com. All right, let's keep going here. I wanted to wrap it up. I always try to get your comments brought back in the show. So at least once a week, bare minimum once every other week, I go back through comments, I pull them in, we talk about them, because again, the community is the best part about what we do here on Locked On Badgers. So let's get some comments in. This is the first one from Playmaker. He said, this is in response to the offensive line, Jack Bicknell leaving. He said, I don't judge Fickell for making a bad hire. Having worked in staffing for 5+ years, you're going to make bad hires from time to time. It was Longo's guy. Fickell trusted that, and the dude had a lot of experience. Instead, I would have judged him if he was a bad hire and he kept him. I'm more happy that Fick immediately identified that for whatever reason it wasn't working. They made the move as soon as possible. That to me is more of a sign of a good decision-making by the staff. Contrast that to previous regimes. That's Playmaker, who's very sharp. I always love when we can get him on the show. I want to go back to your first part. I don't judge Fickell for making a bad hire. I disagree with you slightly there. Listen, I agree nobody's perfect, but it's still on him. No matter what, like making a bad hire is on in football, it's on the head coach, no matter what, to me. And this all stems from my Navy background, by the way. Like a lot of my accountability stuff in my head, a lot of my responsibility stuff always stems back to my time on a submarine. And the captain is ultimately responsible for everything, period. There's no ends, there's no buts, there's no he trusted a guy. Ultimately, the captain's responsible, period. And that's where the buck stops. So he may have trusted Longo. It doesn't matter, it's still on Fickell, right? Like, so I disagree with you on that one. I don't want to say I judge Fickell, because I just think he made a bad hire and it's on him. Now, the part that I completely agree with you on, and I love this part of it, is I like if you think it's not a good fit, then you don't stick with them. Like, hey, this isn't working. We're pivoting. We're making a change. I agree with that completely. I think there's too many coaching staffs. There's too many, just extend it past sports. Right, there's too many companies, there's too many managers, there's too many business owners that stick with bad hires because they don't want to be a bad guy, or they think eventually it'll work out, and they end up doing real damage to their organization. I give Fickell a lot of credit for making the move, saying this isn't working, we're moving on. But I also think he deserves a lion's share of the blame for making the hire in the first place. I think both those things are true. So I agree and disagree with you, I guess, but it's a very good point. This is from Pac Fan. He says, he just said, Ryan, the Niners not going to the Super Bowl. We will see, Pac Fan. Jay Swede says, love you guys, but now it's clear without a doubt you have no idea what it takes to be an NBA player. I'm not sure if this is more to Justin or me, or if it's about my take on Storr, Blackwell, or Connor. Jay Swede, be on the next post you make, just be more specific so we can talk about it. Like, I'm all about chopping it up if people think I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Everybody gets wrong. If I go back to where I'm at specifically, because I don't want to talk for Justin because he's not here, I don't think Connor is much of a shot at all of making the NBA, if that was the point. Like, Justin's a little higher on that possibility than I am. I'm at like a barely above 0% chance. I just don't think he's got the defensive chops to do it. I was at like 30 or 40% for Blackwell, I think. I wonder about the athleticism, but I think he has an opportunity. And I think Storr has the athleticism to do it. And I was at like 80% to him get drafted in the first or second round. So I don't think that's crazy, but right back. Let me know where you think I'm wrong. I wonder if you think I'm too high on Storr, or if you think I'm not high enough on Blackwell. I don't know. Yabba says, love the Navy gear. You need a USS Wisconsin. They're out there. Battleships rock. Yeah, no doubt. I've been on. Listen, absolutely. So I used to have a USS Wisconsin hat. I don't know what I did with it. That is, for those who don't know the Navy as quite as much, the Wisconsin was a battleship in the Iowa class, the last battleship class ever built by the U.S. Navy. Beast of a warship. 16-inch guns, not 3 turrets, just a beast of a warship. This is from Mark. He said, if you're going to make a run in hoops, you can't play like you did against Arizona. I want to take this comment. For starters, Mark, 100%. Like, if you want to make a run, you can't play like that. But I almost want to extend this, and this is why I think this team is in danger of not making a run, because when they run into a really good team like Arizona, I don't think there's any way they can beat them. I think they're going to be outclassed in an Arizona game no matter what. I think they're outclassed in a Purdue game no matter what. I think they're right on the – I think this team is really good, but they are clearly below the elite tier, right, is where I think this basketball team is. So I don't know what else they could do against Arizona, because I think Arizona just out-athletes us 80% of the spots on the floor. And the way they run with their athletes – yeah, it would just take a yeoman's effort for Wisconsin to stay in it. They'd have to shoot lights out, and even then, I don't know how they're guarding Arizona for 40 minutes with their athleticism and their tempo. I think it'd be really hard for Wisconsin. Sean Mullen says it's time for the fire Gard crowd to admit they were wrong. What Gard has done in getting the players and getting them playing well has been incredible. Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with that, Sean. I still see some people thinking Gard should be fired if he doesn't make a Sweet 16 this year or an Elite 8. He's going to finish like second or third in the Big Ten. No coach is getting fired if they finish second or third in a major conference. Like that is not happening, nor should it happen. I apologize if I frustrate people with that comment, but I came into the year not thinking he should be on the hot seat. I thought this team would be better. And it's even better than I thought it would be. Like, you have to give the man credit. He's not perfect. I've talked about it a bunch. Even this year, there's things that frustrate me with Greg Gard, right? But he's a really good coach. He really is. And he's gotten a lot out of this team this year. He's put some nice pieces together. He's managed egos, it feels like, pretty well. And this team is starting to find its rhythm. It's starting to find its groove. I don't think, I hear you, Sean. I think it's a good point. Adam Phillips says, 49ers and Suns fan. That's way too sus. Bandwagon fan right there. Adam, there's no bandwagon Suns fans. That team's never won a title. They just recently had a 10-year stretch where they never made the playoffs. 49ers fan, I'll give you. I was young, but I was born in Tucson. So I was born in Arizona. That's why I'm a Suns fan. I don't know if I've ever met a bandwagon Suns fan. Commandant says, Connor just got the bench today and finally made some contributions. Why are we even talking about him in the NBA? That is crazy to me. I agree. No, I agree. I don't think he's an NBA guy. I think other people are a little higher on him. I don't want to talk for those people because they aren't on the show. I don't think he's an NBA guy. I don't think he's big enough, and I don't think he plays defense well enough. And he would need to be like a Klay Thompson level shooter to overcome those things. And I don't think he's that either. But it was incredibly nice to see him make contributions. This is from, I didn't get who made this comment. He said, wondering if Rucci is just overrated as many high schoolers are. 5-star blue chip, number 13 player in the class of 21. Appeared in only 6 games. He underachieved. I just think offensive linemen are really difficult to develop. They're really difficult to evaluate. They're really difficult to figure out who's going to hit or not. And then you put all of those variables, it's like a variable soup, right? You add in offensive linemen are difficult. Let's add that into the pot. You add in, it's really hard to see how they're going to develop. It's really hard to judge their film because they're playing against lesser competition. You throw all that into a pot and you sprinkle in some, we're going to give you a new offensive line coach every year. Let's sprinkle that in. Let's add a little bit of, we're going to change the offensive system in the middle of the year. It's a combination of so much. It's a combination of they're hard to evaluate, they're hard to develop, they're hard to figure out who's going to hit, and you didn't give them the best opportunity to succeed. This was not a great environment for an offensive lineman to succeed. And by the way, he's not the only one, right? You start to look at all the high-level recruits Wisconsin has brought in, the 4- and 5-star guys, Trey Wettig, Joe Bruner, Nelson, Baby Benz, Logan Brown, Nolan Rucci. If none of them develop up to a star status, is it on them or is it on the program? Right? At some point you point the finger to the program and say, you've had an incredible influx of raw talent. None of them have achieved stardom. That's on you, Wisconsin. That's something you've done wrong. And I think that's probably more likely. I'm going to end with this one. This is from Forrest Aguirre. He said, well, just did the most Wisconsin thing ever. Hit a deer on my way home from work. Forrest, my friends, A, thank you for always watching the show. And B, I hope you are okay. I hope the vehicle's okay. And with that, we're going to wrap it. On Wisconsin, a bunch of content coming up this week. As always, really do appreciate it. We got more basketball, more football. I'm hoping to have some hockey. I think we'll have an interview with a couple of recruits' parents, another recruiting interview. I'm hoping to maybe get someone from the staff on the show. There's a lot coming up this week, so I really do appreciate everybody on Wisconsin, and we'll talk tomorrow.